listening forever. But
And you chose me to start back. That's your fault, man. That is your fault.
I know. Poor planning, straight up poor planning.
What are you gonna do? You know,
yeah. When you have tenure, you don't have to plan anymore.
You can stop planning. That's right.
That's right. So that's the plan. That's the plan from now on.
Is to not plan. Nice.
Yeah, it's to not plan. You got it. So hey, everybody, it's at Percussion Podcast. It's episode 284, and we're recording on April 25th, 2021. If you're listening on release day, you're listening on May 13th, 2021. And with me, as usual, we got Ben Charles. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Casey. Doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks. And Carly Vigna, how are you?
Hey, Casey. Good. I think this is the episode where we all celebrate your tenure.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Everybody do a shot. Go.
Fizzy water? You got it. Yeah.
Carly, I thought of you today because I had that yard work euphoria, like that, man,
yeah.
I feel relaxed. Yard work put me in a relaxed state, and I remember that comment you made.
I know all about that. That's an awesome feeling.
I removed it.
You're not doing virtual yard work anymore. You're back to in-person.
I did in-person yard working. That's right. No more virtual mower. No, I removed this nasty Christmas bush, some kind of awful Christmas holly thorny bush with, 3 feet down, root the size of my head. It was really, really gnarly. But I thought of you. And Ksenija Kmianovich is here. Hey, Ksenija.
Hey, Casey. What's up?
You heard what's up. What's up with you?
What? This is not my kitchen behind me. Stop complimenting my kitchen, everybody in the comments.
Nice kitchen.
So. I'm dog sitting. That's what's new with me. I have a buddy here. He might bark or barf. We'll see.
That would be just fine. Ksenija, what happened today on May 13th, release date? Anything interesting?
Right. Not too much. However, one thing that was interesting was that in 1767, Mozart's first opera, Apollo and Hyacinthus, written when he was 11 years old, got premiered in Salzburg. So I don't know what the average 11-year-old does today. Probably pick their nose, for the Olympics. But Mozart wrote an opera. And here's the thing that you can know about it is, first of all, you can watch it online. So the Mozarteum University Symphony Orchestra has a lovely performance from 2006 that's online. And it's only about over an hour because, 11-year-olds, they don't compose that much. But in any case, interestingly, the story...
That was a secret.
The story in the original, Apollo and Zephyrus, the Zephyrus is the west wind, both love the young Hyacinthus. And when the lad chooses the god, the beautiful prince chooses the god, the jealous west wind slays him with a javelin. And so Hyacinthus dies, and therefore we get this beautiful flower called hyacinth, and that's it. However, that's one version of the story. Another version is that Apollo and Hyacinth hung out and wanted to throw discs, because that's what people used to do back in the days, to hang out as lovers. And Apollo throws the disc so far up and is so strong that it falls and it kills Hyacinth. Poor Hyacinth. But in any case, in the version that Mozart did, well, that was not okay. So they Bowdlerized it, which means that they censored anything that they thought was inappropriate. And in this case, it was homosexuality, which, by the way, if you read any of the myths, it is full of it. Gods are very human-like, and there are relationships going on in all directions where gods turn into eagles and kidnap people, and that's all fine, and then have babies with them and leave them alone and kill them and so on. So it's, it goes in all directions. It's very, very human. But in any case, in this version that Mozart did, they inserted Hyacinthus's sister, that they supposedly fought over her, which sort of diluted the story and I think made it much less interesting. But, let's maybe give them a break. It was the 18th century. We've evolved since then. But that's about it. And 11-year-old had their opera premiered. So good job, Mozart.
Cool. Isn't this the piece that maybe his sister wrote? Or is that something else?
No, his sister, as far as nope, I don't know. I haven't done that in-depth research, but I do know that she cataloged this way later because it's definitely not one of his most known works. But
yeah, that's sounding more right the more I think about it and the more you say, because I thought it was just a lot of his really, really I'm 4 years old writing stuff works. Because I know I reported on his sister once, because if you Google Mozart's sister, you'll find, like, was she actually the more talented of the two? Did she actually do a lot of the work for some of his, like, really, really young pieces, and how much of the father, like, supplanted some of this information? Anyway, so there's a lot of speculation about all that stuff. So, yeah. Cool. Thanks, Ksenija.
This is by far the most knowledge drop day of COVID. I've learned more in this last 2 minutes than I've learned in like 18 months. So this is great.
That's awesome. Hey, did you guys
That's
just hear?
because of Casey's in-person yard work, not because of me, right? 'Cause that would I blush too much.
Jauvon, we're actually not going to have you on. We actually just have the guests to, listen to us and motivate us to sound smart.
That's exactly what I expect, guys. No problem.
Well, you just heard his voice. He's our guest today, and he's the principal timpanist of the National Symphony Orchestra. You guys, he won that job when he was 29. Ben's not even 29.
That's not true.
Ben's not even 29 yet, but Jauvon had this gig when he was only 29. So that's, I don't know, that's unusual. That's really cool. He's also the timpanist of what's called the All-Star Orchestra, which is a made-for-TV PBS group comprised of players of orchestras around the country. And gosh, what else? He's been a guest artist. I'm all over. He's performed with the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra, San Francisco Symphony, Budapest Festival Orchestra, Detroit Symphony, the Mostly Mozart Festival. And he's, been a clinician all over, PASIC, all sorts of places. And he has his own signature line of timpani mallets through Innovative Percussion. And it's our buddy, Jauvon Gilliam. How's it going, Jauvon?
Hey, man, Casey, thanks for having me, dude. This is great, man.
Yeah, sure. It's so cool to see you again. And gosh, I saw you at your university. He also teaches University of Maryland, by the way. I don't know, what was that, 5 years ago, something like that?
Something like that. Yeah, it was a little bit ago, but now that you're right up the street, like we got to make it, happen more often, for sure.
I know. Likewise. Yeah, love to have you come visit us. Yeah, we have more timpani here than I know what to do with.
That's where I come in, Boot. I got you. Whatever you need.
How have you been doing? How is, I know we all probably talk about this way too much, but like, how's COVID been? It's like COVID's wrapping up. We're starting to see kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
I hope so, man. So, I'm good. Family's good. I got vaccinated. My second shot was a week ago, yesterday. It did knock me out the day after, but I'm fine now.
Moderna?
Moderna, yeah.
But Moderna, no problems.
Yeah. But it's totally worth it. Like, I'll just jump into this podcast. Not sure how raw we were going to get. Like growing up in the hood, being a Black man, like the stereotype is that we shy away from medicine, from anything that's sort of like, like doctor's offices and doctor's appointments and everything. It's just taboo. Right. And so I've got family that don't want to take the shot at all, even though, their livelihoods depend on coming back to normal, whatever the case may be. And then the J&J news came out, right? What was it? 6 cases out of 7 million or something like that. Freaked everybody out. Right. And so here I am trying to tell, close family members that like you not wanting to get this shot is, I'm saying this in a nice way. I'm saying it more blunt here because they probably won't hear this. You guys are being selfish, get the shot so we can all go back to living a life that's more what we're used to. So, COVID has it's obviously upended all of our lives. But I guess I started this a little grim. Let me brighten this up. I'm good. I'm vaccinated and very happy about that. And, the sun is out. And so things are great. No, it's been fine, man. It's been fine. Like I know a few people that have passed on because of COVID, but my immediate family is healthy. And so I'm very thankful for that. So yeah.
It's so true. Like, it's from so many different places now. And just the most recent one is the vaccination, scare and misinformation. And starting way back from like fake news, and it's just all this information, and it's just the whole clickbait, read the headline, but you can't follow through. It's like me trying to clean up after my toddler. It's like he can destroy the living room way faster than I can pick it up, obviously. It's like the same thing, like misinformation spreads so fast, you don't have time to dismantle it. Or the right people don't have time to dismantle it. You can't possibly keep up with that. So it's such a mystery with like how the heck we're going to fix this. It's like right now it's vaccination. What is it going to be? soon from now, you know.
I think that's the first step, and then we'll figure it out. Like, this is clearly an evolving thing. I mean, COVID being brand new, you know, so we'll figure it out. I think as long as people, you know, trust science, I think we'll be all right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so it's so tricky too. Like, people say, like, why do you trust science? You're not a scientist. Like, you're right, I'm not a scientist, but
That's
scientists
why I
has
trust scientists, right?
right. It's like, but let me tell you why I do. It's because science has a reliable track record of, like, well, look, they told me the eclipse of the sun would happen at this exact second, and it did. It's like that has happened repeatedly. So yes, I don't understand how the eclipse of the sun happened at that second, but their prophecy came true to the second, and it does every day when the lights continually turn on. Anyway, it's like it's a really silly, frustrating argument to be in. Ben, why don't you ask a question about timpani or something, or about me?
Yeah, to change to a lighter topic, Jauvon, I noted you have these really unique looking timpani mallets by Innovative Percussion, and Innovative Percussion for a very long time has had a history of making wonderful keyboard mallets and drumsticks. But I think the professional grade timpani mallets are a newer venture for them. So could you tell us about your mallet series with IP and developing them?
Yeah, I mean, you said it very eloquently. Like, they've made great mallets over the years, but they had very little, let me rephrase that, zero experience with high quality timpani mallets, right? So I was approached by a colleague in the industry that said, hey, I think you'd be great to work with IP. I had not worked with any stick companies in the past, other than like boutique people for like my own personal stuff, right? But nothing official. And so I was like, yeah, you know, I'm good. I use what I use. It's fine. Life is great. You know, whatever, video games and, you know, timpani, I'm great. But after about a year, this person came back to me and said, bro, I think you'd be fantastic. Why don't you just talk to them and you see what happens? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll talk to whoever. So that's when I had a phone conversation with Eric, George, and Chris, the three, you know, top guys at IP. And, you know, they're just good people. And they were like, look, we don't know what we're doing. We think you know what you're doing. Let's figure this out together. I'm like, well, if you think I know, let's see what happens. And so we basically jumped in, flying blind a little bit. Obviously, they have the technology and all of the stick making, you know, acumen, and I had my ideas. And so the best thing about working with those guys is I think that they didn't know any better. So any idea that I had, they were like, yeah, let's try it. Any thought process, let's try it. You know, I want a stick that you can learn how to play with your elbows and your toenails. Yeah, let's try it. It didn't matter what my idea was. They were like, yeah, let's try it. So that's what we did. We tried everything under the sun. And at the end of the day, once we came up with like the sort of the nuts and bolts, like what type of stick we want and the core we want or whatever, I remember throwing out to Chris, who is the VP of product development. I said, hey man, you know, always joked that when I get, you know, and I already had my job, I said, once I get my job, I'm going to put spinners on my timpani for the wheels, right? You remember spinners back in like the 2000s, the wheels that had the weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like I put spinners on and it'd be kind of dope. And of course that's silly, but I was like, you know, I always thought black on black would be great. He was like, well, hey, how about we, you know, try that for the sticks? I'm like, well, that's a process because, you know, at that point we had landed on bamboo, which we had went around everything else, graphite, carbon fiber, ebony, rosewood, hornwood. We went around a whole bunch of stuff. We landed on bamboo. It was like, well, how do we get this to work? And so we tried paint, we tried stain, we tried lacquer, we tried they tried some weird infusion that I don't even know about, right? And so we did that and they figured out a process that worked. And then we had to do the same thing with the felt. And it was the same for everything. We went through about 3 or 4 different iterations of the felt. And so it was a really, really interesting process because a lot of this stuff had never been done before. The colored seam down the middle, like we had to figure out a way to do that because, you know, there was no way to put a white dot on black felt. It just didn't stick. It looked weird. It just kind of looked funny. So like all these things kind of happened by osmosis, if you will. And then the first batch came out and we still had some work to do because there were some quality control issues. Like the sticks that I own are perfect. Like my batch of sticks, I have 2 batches that I have myself. They're great. But what they had to figure out was how to make quality sticks every single time because you can't mass produce timpani mallets like you can mass produce a snare drum stick. Like you just put it in the machine, it cuts out and then it's out, right? Timpani mallets are much more personal. They're much more like one-to-one. So, and I just took some time for them to understand that. They've always listened. IP is great.
Yeah, it's rare. There's so many products in the exhibit hall at PASIC, and it's rare that you kind of stop and are taken aback by one. And your mallets in particular, I was like, those are the sexiest timpani mallets I've ever seen. Just to look at them, they're so cool. And I remember hearing very much the same thing about like the Chris Lamb orchestral series. They said, you know, Chris Lamb wanted to try every last little possibility, and they're great mallets because of it. So yeah, my hat's off to you. I look for, I think when I went by, I don't think there was actually a timpani there to try them on. So I look forward to actually trying them on a timpani at some point.
Just play them on marimba. You can just bang them on
marimba.
Yeah.
Multi-timpani.
So.
It's fun. But have Casey write you a piece where it's like black timpani mallets on marimba. He can do it.
Yeah. Just take another piece and write that above it.
So white knuckle stroll. Jauvon, with those mallets, obviously, again, like, I mean, they have their, you know, very, very decent educational models, just their general timpani series. With your mallets, obviously, you were talking about a completely new pricing tier for their timpani mallets. And was that sort of something that was discussed ahead of time? Like, hey, these are not going to be $30 a pair, and they were okay with it, or they just expected that, or?
No, I didn't really care. I mean, I let them deal with that. Like for me, it was 0% about like, you know, making money. It was about trying something new. Again, I wasn't really interested in doing it, but then once I met those guys and I saw the potential, I went all in, and then it was great. So to be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea how much they cost. No clue.
I was almost tempted to ask, like, how do they determine that? Like, I wonder, you know, and I have a similar response to my mallets as well. It's like, I don't really know how we came up with that or how they came up with it. I certainly didn't. It's like,
I think some people have input. Like, I mean, I would imagine that some other artists want input in the pricing. And I think do remember having a conversation, now that I think about it, saying something like, if you're gonna do this, you have to make sure that, like, you know, there are boutique timpani mallet makers that make things out of their house, right? And of course, they have higher overhead and higher, you know, situations. So if you want to compete, I think the best thing to do is to first, let's get a great product, right? And then let's see what the response is. But again, that was, you know, I'm a businessman, but not a retail businessman. I don't sell products. So it's like, you know, I let them do that, you know, and, you know, they haven't told me that I saw the numbers for 2019. I did see the numbers for 2020, which don't count because it's COVID, right? But for 2019, they were fairly higher, almost 60% higher than 2018, as far as sales go. So, like, whoever's buying them are buying them, right? And so for me, it's just a matter of, like, there are a million different great timpani, maybe not a million. There are a lot of great timpani mallets out there. And so it's really about, you know, what works for you and your space and feel and all that other stuff. So if I can add another product out there, I'm not going to knock Ginter's mallets or Jeff's mallets, or, you know, that's not me. Just, as long as you sound good, sound in tune, I don't care what you use. Yeah.
Cool. Is there a mallet that, like, I'll just hit the drum and it'll sound in tune?
Yes, the Jauvon Gilliam in tune mallet, JG all in mallet. That will help you out. Yes, that's my secret. It's my secret sauce, dude. That's why I'm always in tune, man.
Like, if I need to play a scale, like, I don't have to do a pedal or anything. I just do that and it happens.
No, well, if you have a scale that we have, it's a set of 13 mounts, right? So if you need any note you got to pick up the right stick. So
okay. Okay. I would pay a higher price.
Right for that, right?
Being tune, I would do that. Carly, I think you're next in the chat there.
Yeah. I just got to tell you that was a classic Casey dad joke. Yeah, good job.
I'm getting better every day.
So, Jauvon, we talk a lot about balance on the podcast with a lot of different guests. And I think even though we talk about it a lot, I think you are the most qualified person to talk about balance because you are just so busy. I know that you're, in addition to principal timpani with the National Symphony and full-time at University of Maryland, you have Capital Percussion, and then all the other things that you do, like the Washburn Timpani Seminar, and you're working with NYO. So I'd love to know what's your secret, and how do you prioritize the different aspects of your work and maintain energy to do it all so well as you do?
I'll be honest, like, COVID has been a respite in that respect. Like, it's been a bit of a time to sort of breathe and relax. And just now in the past week, my life has started to like it's like a sharp curve up. Like, it's gotten pretty busy in the last week. But before that, like, I've definitely tried to take this time. again, this is not in reference to like the social injustice and the pandemic and all the financial crisis, like all the stuff that's still important that we are still dealing with. But me personally, I took this time to sort of recharge. Because when life is going, I am busy. I stay up late. I get up early. That is my not so secret. I'm pretty good with time management. I will work during orchestra breaks. I will get to the concert hall early, go find a corner and knock some stuff out. Like I try to do that so that when I'm home, I'm home. And even then when I'm at home, like as soon as the kid goes to bed, I check in with the boss, and then, it's back to work again. I try to keep it moving. I feel like right now, this is a season of growth for me. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was trying to win a different job, like that season was excerpts, practice, getting better at timpani, right? And now for me, it's like growing my business, so like it's a different season, and that takes a whole different set of skills. So I just try to compartmentalize in that way. But the real secret is I just stay up late. I'm up late and I get it in. And so far, it's worked out so far. The business has grown that I now have 2 full-time employees, which is great because they help me out so that I don't have to physically be or physically do some of the other things that I had to do when we were growing. So that frees up time to do other things. So it's a little bit more, and they're great. They're actually both former percussionists, one from Towson and one from Florida State. So, I mean, that makes it great that they both, know that particular portion, because when it comes to backline, being a drummer is really key. Like guitars and keyboards and all that other stuff and sound, that's part of it. But most of the time where the mistakes happen with backline is in the drum set, where they don't know how to set up a drum kit. Right. So, and we do. So, but it's all about, making sure you keep your ducks in a row, and just take whatever time you have to knock out an email or, focus on this for 10 minutes and then move on to the next thing so that you don't get overwhelmed or behind.
Right. Absolutely. Sneaking it in here and there where you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I wonder if you would tell us a little bit more about your original vision for Capital Percussion. How did that start? What was especially in the beginning, what was the work like, and what's it like? What's your involvement now? Yeah. It's awesome that you have 2 full-time employees.
Yeah, it's great. So CP started on a whim. Eric Shin, who's the principal percussionist in the NSO, and I were out at a restaurant. And I'm like, you know what? We own gear that's sitting in our house, or that's sitting not being used, that is probably better than some of the stuff that comes in for rentals. Why don't we just rent our percussion, our concert percussion stuff to, our friends that come through town? Like when Philly Orchestra comes through town and they need a set of chimes or bass chime or whatever, we'll provide it. Be great. Easy breezy. Like that was the impetus. And Eric's so savvy and tech savvy. At the restaurant, he got the domain name and got emails in 5 minutes. So that was the impetus of how CP started. Long story short, Eric went a different direction. As I'm sure some of you guys know, he owns restaurants now. He went a different direction. And so I looked at Capital Percussion I didn't have that much gear. We had a few gongs and, some timpani and whatever. It wasn't that much. I was like, do I want to sell this and just kind of, move on? Or do I really want to put some sweat equity in this and see what happens and see what can grow? And I did some research and I realized that there was actually a market for a company that does that, but also does backline. So I don't know if most concert percussionists don't know what backline is. So briefly, like when Snarky Puppy or John Batiste or Diana Ross or the Police or Earth, Wind and Fire, like you could go, groups come to perform in your city. 9 times out of 10, they don't bring their own equipment unless they're like Taylor Swift and they come with like a 53-foot truck and like tour buses. And so guitars, guitar amps, keyboards, drums, sound, staging, mics, all that stuff is locally sourced. And so that's an industry that, has been around for a long time. So once I realized that there was only one company in the district that did it, I decided to sort of jump in and see if I could, be another option for people. Took a few years, and took us some investment, like some financial investment and some, like I said, some sweat equity. But we've grown, and now, like I said, that's our main division, if you will, is definitely backline. We provide gear for festivals and ensembles and concerts and jazz fests and all kind of stuff. And that's what really I enjoy a lot, like going to TV and going to, whether it's on PBS or NPR or Tiny Desk, and knowing that that's our gear that's being used, and so that's really what the business has come to. We still provide all the concert percussion for like local high schools that come play at memorials and all kinds of stuff. So it's become more of a conglomerate, if you will. And so, that's what the gig is now. At first I did everything. Like I packed the gear, delivered the gear, purchased the gear, like marketed everything. And at this point, like I said, I have a VP and I have a general manager who basically take care of everything for me. And I basically make sure that they have the tools that they need. And that's what's actually been great during COVID. I've been able to pay them full time or their full salaries throughout COVID with a lot of hustle. And so it's been really great, and we're all ready to go, just so that when things hopefully open up, everybody that's listening, please continue to wear your mask and let's all get the shot, please. Once things open up and we can get moving, we're ready to go. We're actually ready to roll, and we'll be ready for, to help out our clients as best as they can once concerts start to come back.
That's so great to hear. I think every time, like every city has hopefully at least one rental company where, percussionists, at least all the freelancers know, oh, like this company or this person has everything. I trust them with anything. And just like the story is similar. Like you see a need, you have to have the investment capital and, the hustle and the work ethic and know how to make it happen. But it's wonderful to hear your story there.
Well, it's crazy. Like one thing, we're all drummers, so you guys will understand this. Like the investment, financially, but whatever, but like the physical investment it's insane. So we own 30 drum sets, and when I say one drum kit, that's 8, 10, 12, 13-inch rack tom, 14, 16, 18-inch floor tom, 18, 20, 22, 24-inch kick drum, 4, 5, and a 6.5-inch snare drum, and 3 sets of hardware. All right. So hi-hat stands and boom stands and thrones and pedals and all that stuff. That's one drum kit. We own 30.
Do you have some of those Lars Ulrich metal sticks though? Like what if they need some of those?
Insane. We don't have those, but we've got a lot of other sticks. We've got some of those acrylic. Remember those old acrylic sticks that have the weird feedback when you play? We own a lot of stuff, man. We have a lot of stuff. So, and that requires space too, right? Like you gotta have a warehouse for this stuff. You gotta have space, you gotta have trucks, you gotta have, and there's insurance. I mean, it's a real bona fide like side hustle. Not really side anymore, but I love it. I really do. I enjoy it quite a bit. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because I know here, the School of Music at JMU, and then there's the Performing Arts Center, which are of course they're very related, but sometimes they're not. Like a group's coming to town, and sometimes I'll get a description of what gear they would like. And sometimes it's really, really specific, which like you could fill, but we can't. They say like we need a 22 and it's got to be Yamaha, and we need this and we need that and we need that. And I had a colleague over there once asked like, hey, what are we going to do? We don't have this stuff. Like, well, how are we going to get that? And I said like, I don't know. You can tell them.
Now you know.
Right, now you know. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, no, that's like a whole separate. Are you insane? Like, how would a school have every drum set size and brand and that's a whole.
A lot of people are cool. A lot of people are chill about it, right? I mean, you need 20, you need 22, you use a 20, it's fine. But there are a lot of people that are not chill about it, right? Yeah. Where they have to have the right size and the right depth of toms. Like I guess some of these stories you've heard about how people say they want, purple M&Ms, or they have to have only this and that, or they have to have only Fiji water because if it's Poland Spring, I'm sending it back. That's real, man. Those are real.
I love the Steven Schick, I play exclusively what's available.
That'd be great. If everybody had that attitude, it'd be great. Right.
Well, yeah, Ozzy wouldn't go on stage that night unless I found 1,000 brown M&Ms.
Right.
It's a Wayne's World. Yeah. True story. I don't know if that's a true story. Ben, I think, maybe?
Yeah, well, the whole rental thing, it reminds me a lot of the Jonathan Haas backstory, and we have an episode with him as well. But basically, he started gigging in New York City and realized that he was making more money off renting his instruments than he was playing himself. So,
but he's one of my mentors. I've talked to him ad nauseum about this. Like,
he is the guy, obviously, to talk to about that. But, well, Jauvon, I wanted to ask. We talked to Keith Aleo a while back, and Keith has this beautiful thing. He talks about goals, and sometimes you'll have a lofty goal and you'll reach it at a very old age. It takes you a long time to get there. And sometimes by the time you get there, your goal has actually changed and you go in a different direction. But with Keith, the thing was he won his job at a very young age. I think he was 24 or so, like you, who also won a job at a very young age. And he talked about basically like, I was 24 and I got the gig. So like, what did I do from there? How did I continue to grow and develop as a person? What new direction did I go in? And if you know Keith Aleo, you can kind of deduce what the story was there. But Jauvon, after you got your gig, did you have that same feeling of like, all right, well, the world is my oyster. What do I do now?
Everything Keith does is beautiful, right? Keith is just beautiful personified, right? I think I didn't have that at first. You know, I was just very happy, very fortunate to be, you know, I mean, you guys know, you take the gig wherever the gig is. Doesn't matter, right? I mean, my first gig was in Winnipeg. You know, I didn't know where that was. And I love Winnipeg. I love my years in Canada. It's great. So, you know, when I got the job in DC, I was very fortunate and I did not take it for granted from day one. Like I did not. And so for a while, I was just happy to be alive, man. It's just like, you know, kid in a candy store, like, you know, between that and having great kids at UMD, like I miss Carly by a few years there, but like, you know, like it's fantastic. I was like, this is life is great. I have not and had not had a chance to get sort of bored or needing to find something else before CP happened. Right. So now that I've got the business on top of this other stuff, I'm good. Like I'm cool. I got plenty of stuff to keep me busy. So I don't know. And there's still like, and again, maybe it's COVID related, but like, I feel rejuvenated with my job. Like I never got tired of playing Tchaik 4, but I've played it 7,000 times. So it is what it is, but like, I haven't heard it or listened to it or played it in over a year. So like, I miss it. So like, you know, now I'm kind of ready to get back into it. So for me, the age or, you know, the goal setting, whether it's young or old, I guess for me, it's just like, I just had such a varied last few years with the business kind of growing. And then, like I said, with this sort of situation with COVID happening, sort of getting a reset in that way. For me, it's just kind of like just making sure that like I can wake up and put my pants on and like, you know, make sure my kids get out to school, you know, before that's it's the simple things for me these days, you know.
Have you considered changing your company name to Capital Percussion Products so it could be You Down with CPP?
Yeah, you know me. I had not, but that's pretty awesome. So, CPP
royalty free. You can have that one.
Wow, I mean, I'm an equal opportunity employee. If I do a DBA, like you will get 37 cents. I absolutely.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna think about that. Oh, that's a good one.
My other podcast business idea, if Yamaha or anyone is listening, is to do a battery-powered motor on a vibraphone, so you don't have to plug it in. I've mentioned that many times.
Well, and I counted.
What happens if it runs out? How do you do it if it runs out mid-show? It's
like a laptop battery. Like you can use it plugged in or not plugged in, and it charges all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking
like a Prius. Wait, we had all these ideas. Like a Prius, every time you pedal, it charges, right?
Yeah.
EVV. The EV.
Yeah. This is where you down with EVV? Yeah.
Yeah, we
Call
can.
me Yamaha.
We can figure out how to make that work. I'm sure. Yeah, a couple of drummers could figure that out. Well, my idea was that it would be wind up. So like a music box that you wind it up, it'd be spring tension. So you wouldn't need a battery at all.
Perfect. And then
that could really work.
It's almost down, it starts to play like some sort of lullaby, like, you know, like a music box. It's perfect. Let you know you're out of juice.
I think that could work. Well, hey, we talked a good deal about rental, and I ran into a little story that's, rental related. It's not a story of renting these church bells, but it's a story of just a quick little donation story.
And in tune. Look at that.
I know, like really in tune. I actually want to talk a little about that. So that's the C.
They're using my sticks. Remember, don't forget, they're using my sticks.
That's why. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the C and G. Okay, so you guys, this is Berlioz Symphonie Fantastique C and G, the bells that are required, the off-stage church bells that you often see on stage because people often prefer that theatric and presentation. But yeah, being played with Jauvon Gilliam's signature C and G sticks, so they're in tune, which is awesome because you can just hit a hunk of metal and it doesn't matter; they'll sound right. But no, I bumped into this story. Our buddy Fernando Meza, who by the way just got promoted to full professor. Way to go, Fernando!
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Yep, that's awesome. No surprise there. We knew that was certainly going to happen. And he's been on the show before. He's a longtime friend. But in his Facebook feed, I just saw this little story of a donation of these 2 church bells to the Minnesota Orchestra. And I've seen Fernando play in Minnesota. It's just a fantastic hall. It's a wonderful space. I saw him play the Rite of Spring with the group. I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard such a perfect performance of the Rite of Spring. So yeah, those are the C&G bells for Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique, and those are the actual bells that were donated to the Minnesota Orchestra. And a fan of the orchestra named Gary Cohen, who is, I guess, a history professor, he was making regular donations to the orchestra, and he becomes friends with Brian Mount, who's the principal percussionist. And I guess he and Brian become friends over conversations in the lobby, and they start passing around videos and they start passing around recordings and talking about gear and percussion. And Gary Cohen, who gifted the bells, said he's surprised to see that a lot of times orchestras don't have the bells, and they're often using MIDI playback, or they're using chimes or something. And actually Berlioz recommends 2 pianos on stage if you don't have the bells, which, like, no, come on, he must have been high when he said that. That ain't gonna work. So we use chimes, of course. We use MIDI triggers. We use things like that. But here's a little quote from the article on their website. Mount and Cohen combed through some of the best-known orchestral works to use the bells: Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique, Richard Strauss also spoke Zarathustra, Shostakovich 11, Mussorgsky Pictures and Exhibition, as well as Night on Bald Mountain, several Mahler symphonies, and Britten's 4C interludes. Of these works, one stood out to Mount and Cohen, and that was, of course, Symphonie Fantastique. So yeah, I thought this was exciting, and this was really cool, and it kind of encouraged me to look up a little about bells and how bells are made. Does anybody know how church bells are made?
I don't.
No, tell us.
Well, I could just show you a cool YouTube video that will explain it really well, but you can do that on your own. So instead, what I'm going to do is, Ben's laughing, I'm going to draw it for you on Microsoft Paint. Are you guys ready for this?
Oh boy, I cannot wait.
This is really going to bum some of you out. In fact, look, I'll show you right now. Like, I have a video queued up on how to do it. Like right here, here's a video, like an actual bell maker on bells. How do they do it? Discovery. But instead of doing that, we're going to go straight to Microsoft Paint. And what they do is they have like a center column of, let's see, what am I doing? They have a center column of like bricks, right? So imagine these are bricks. Oh yeah, those are bricks. Nice. And then they kind of, make a column down the side. Those are also bricks.
Casey, I always thought there was a boy bell and a girl bell.
that might be how it's done. And then what they're going to do is pack sand around this pile of bricks. Okay, this is sand that you're seeing, and they're going to slowly create a bell shape out of that sand, right? And they're going to make it really strong with a coating of graphite, like graphite paint. And then they're also going to pour hot wax on it, more sand, and they'll make this really excellent looking bell out of sand that's really, really detailed, and it's pretty firm. And that's called the false bell. So that's actually what the bell will look like. And then what they do is they take an opposite mold. So they take like the same thing, like the same shape from that bell, they make another mold, and that mold goes on top of it. And there's more sand in between those two things. So they get the shape from the false bell, and then they put more sand in here, okay? Let it cool and let it harden. And then when they, and then they remove it so that there's a void there. And then they pour lava freaking hot brass in here, okay? And then they take everything off and you're left with a bell. Okay, so that's how they do it. If you really want to learn how they do it, you should just watch this video. Oh, Ksenija looks mad. She's like shaking her head, like, oh my
The
God.
most learning I've done in a year, man. This is great. Like,
See, now Ksenija, see, it's fine. She's mad. She's like, Casey, this is going to be a high-profile episode, Jauvon Gilliam, and you just drew Microsoft Paint how bells are made. But it was pretty clear, right?
it's very clear. I am now a bell making expert, medium.
See?
Okay, so this is going to make me sound really stupid and uneducated, but that's not how they make timpani, right? Timpani are made with like a press.
So they make timpani with clay. Let me show you. Let me pull up my Microsoft Paint. Tubs are made a little different. They take a piece of copper or two pieces, and they press it, and then they hand hammer it. Most timpani are, well, nowadays you can make the bowl out of a single piece. But in the olden days, there were two or three pieces. Like my drums are two-piece frames or two-piece bowls. The orchestra's drums are two-piece bowls. So, and then the Yamahas that we have are single, so spun. No clay involved, no molten hot lava, which is sad, like now that's what I want. Now, like, I'm going to call Yamaha. We're going to get the battery powered vibe, and then we're going to get the molten timpani. This is what's going to happen. We're going to make them so much money. It's going to be great.
I'll just add, when you look at the underside of a bell, especially a church bell, you will see these grooves that you see here, almost like grooves in a record, right? And they're like denser in some places. Like right here, they're really thick, and that's because there are certain points that you tune the 5 pitches of a bell. So there's 5 notes they tune. And
is that like harmonics, Casey?
Sort of. They call them partials. I don't know if there's a specific difference between partials and harmonics. I'm really not quite sure. But yes, it is like that, like pitches around and beyond the fundamental. So those pitches are, I can't keep track of my freaking doc. There it is. Those pitches are the hum note, which is the lowest partial, and then an octave above is the prime or fundamental. That's, of course, the main note that you hear. The next one is called the tierce or minor third partial, which gives a bell, I guess, its melancholy quality according to this, and then the quint or perfect fifth above the prime, and then what's called the nominal partial, which is 1 octave above the prime naming note, and that's it. So there's 5 notes they tune, and that's what those grooves are inside, and that's why you'll see one set of grooves that seems to be like more carved at than some of the other spots.
That's super interesting, dude. I mean, I don't know if this like equates to this, but that's why some bells, some chimes are out of tune. Maybe like whoever, sat and did their whole clay lava situation, maybe they didn't do it right. Or, I mean, of course they go out of tune over time, but I've never really thought about why certain chimes or certain notes on certain chimes sound better than others. And that what you just explained might be my answer to that. So yeah, that's
well, and I don't know about y'all, but my experience with like anything metal, like you can knock it out of tune. Like sometimes you got to fuss at people. Hey, don't hit those crotales too hard. You will like literally knock them out of tune.
So do you think that they're like the groove situation? They're like knocking the grooves out of whack, you think, or something like that?
I don't know.
I'm not a rabbit hole here, but I'm down with it. Yeah.
I assume it's just the integrity of the metal. Like if you dropped a bell, like let's say, in fact, we reported on the fire at Notre Dame and talked about how, the scariest part, they were so worried about the fire reaching the bell tower because if the bells fell down, they would probably take a lot of the cathedral with them, right? Because all the structure supporting the bells is made of wood. So if the fire got to the bell tower, it's like, oh my gosh, we got to get the fire out before it gets to the bell tower. So they're prioritizing the bell tower. And I forget what episode this was on. I reported on it like a tillion episodes ago. But if those fail, the bells are going to fall, and they weigh 1,000 tons, they're going to take the church down with them. So yeah, but imagine like if that bell fell, it's not going to be in tune anymore.
That's a fair assumption. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's your topic for the day, and thanks Fernando for sharing that. I thought it was cool.
Appreciate you, Fernando. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Ksenija.
Cool. I wanted to ask 2 questions. One is, what happened to your promising piano career? And 2, how did arts administration inform your business mind today?
Those are sort of related, to be honest. So I got a scholarship to go play piano at Butler, which is the school I went to for my undergrad. And growing up in Gary, which is very stereotypical, segregated, it's very Black, it's very lower class, lower middle class, but we were pretty broke. My dad used music to keep me off the streets and away from the drugs and the guns, right? Music and sports. And so I was the only classical piano player in the neighborhood. And I won't say in the city because, it's a big city, but like I was the only one I knew of, right? And so that helped because some of the drug dealers, some of the ne'er-do-wells would know to either send me home, tell me to go home because something's about to happen, or they would, make sure that they always took care of me, right? So I had that sort of halo, if you will, which allowed me to go and practice, right? My dad, like every day after school, I was practicing playing piano. So I got pretty good for Gary. So I would do, banquets and funerals and, all kinds of things in Gary. And that obviously got me to practice and, play Furley's really well and some other stuff. And so I get to Butler and I'm one of two students that are on full scholarship. The other was a lady or a young woman from Wisconsin. And so this is either right when school started or right before school. And we were both practicing, and I believe I was walking past and I heard her and I had met her at some other thing. So I knock on the door and I say, hey, her name was Colleen. I said, hey, Colleen, how you doing? It's nice to meet you, Jauvon. It's like, oh, yeah. So me, Mr. Gary, the best in the city, I'm like, why don't we just, let's just play for each other. Let's just see how this goes. She's like, oh, sure, of course. So I start first. And I remember I did Chopin's Revolutionary Etudes in C minor, right? All these fast runs. I do it, I'm fine or whatever. And then I sit back and I probably sit back, B-boy. I'm like, all right, now you go. She wiped the floor with me. Oh my gosh. I don't even remember what she played, but she destroyed me. And in like 3 minutes, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like she literally handed me my hat. And this was before school started or right at the beginning. So it was at that point that I kind of realized I'm not as good as I think I am. Right. And so that was sort of the impetus for me to think about doing other things. I was a piano player in the youth orchestra in high school. And my first foray into timpani was when there was a piece, Leroy Anderson's A Christmas Overture, that needed timpani. There was no timpanist or percussion players, at least at that rehearsal, but there was no piano on that particular tune. So the cello coach, got to follow me the instruments here, came to me and said, hey, do you want to play timpani since you're not playing piano? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I go over there, and my first time ever playing timpani, like this Christmas Overture is in C major. It opens in C major, so G's and C's, but I read it in treble clef because it's piano player, right? So I play E's and A's, right? That was my first foray into timpani, right? It's a disaster. So, so I kind of had a background, and I was like, clearly I'm not as good as I thought with piano. So that was my freshman year, and I kind of farted around, girls and all kind of stuff like you do in college or whatever. So then my sophomore year comes around, and there was a new percussion instructor at Butler. John Crabill is his name. And long story short, he's the one that put me on this path. He studied with Johnny Lane at Eastern Illinois. He also studied with Tim Adams, who was a timpanist then in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon. And so he was the one that basically said, you can make a living playing drums. I was sold. And so that's how I got started into percussion. But because I wanted to try to keep my scholarship, I went to the dean. The dean at that time also happened to be my piano instructor. So I was like, look, I think I want to switch. I don't want to do piano anymore. I'm thinking about doing arts administration for a fallback, right? Because, percussion performance, this is, again, I'm a young idiot. And people are like, that's a degree that leads you nowhere, which is clearly not true. But that's what I was told. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll do arts administration because, I don't know, seems cool. So it was really like, Ksenija, it was very like naive. I'm still naive in a way. Like, that's just the way I live my life. I kind of ready, fire, aim. I leap first and then be like, that didn't really work. And then backtrack and fix it. That's just how I am, So that's kind of the story how it happened. So I changed my sophomore year. I dropped piano. I switched to arts admin with a specialty in percussion. And because the dean was my piano teacher, he let me keep my full ride. Right. And so that's kind of sort of how it all works together. And I didn't switch. And then I still farted around and didn't practice my sophomore year, junior year girls. Right. And so then it came to my senior year. And that's when I actually got serious into timpani. It was my senior year in college. And that's sort of, the rest of the situation. But it was sort of a roundabout way, and I didn't really know any better. Like I didn't know how hard it was to get a job or how, like nowadays I know it's just as hard to get a university position as it is to get an orchestra position. It's all hard. I didn't know any of that. And that was probably the best thing for me was my naivety. I was just living life, just kind of hanging out, trying to do whatever college kids do, college boys do, girls. So it's whatever, like I was just trying to do whatever. And like, that's kind of sort of what it ended up being for me, just kind of like, living life. And then once I became a senior is when I changed and I got sort of focused. So, and the arts admin portion helped. I did my internship with the Atlanta Symphony in Atlanta and Indianapolis Symphony. And so that kind of kept me involved in the orchestra world. And then, went to go get my master's and then got a job.
Wow, that's so cool. What an exciting
long story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Thank you.
I totally agree that I think the naivete of not knowing like how hard this can be as far as a career path is 100% a benefit for students. Of course, like we need to know the realities of what is possible after school and all of that. But yeah,
right.
That resonates with me. Jauvon, I heard you were on the Percussion Pedagogy podcast recently with Tommy Dobbs. It was a nice interview. Yeah. And I heard you talk a little bit about helping your students and wanting to help them be better people and better citizens and, better human beings. In addition, of course, like, we want our students to develop great hands and musicianship and all of those other skills. Would you talk a little bit more about kind of what non-musical characteristics or traits or things do you hope your students learn from you?
I see being an educator as, like we are stewards of like these parents, like want the best for their kids. Everybody does, right? And so like they are handing their child off to you to mold them into this, this person. I mean, I'm sure all of us, like, at least for me, let me speak for myself, like my college years were my most formative, right? I mean, middle school, like is the most brutal time ever. Like I'm starting to see like my 4-year-old, I'm so nervous for her to go to middle school because it's just, that's going to suck. But like, that's not what necessarily shapes you as a human being, right? It's your college years, the years where you're out there by yourself, you're making your mistakes by yourself, you figure it out by yourself, And so like, I take very seriously the responsibility when these parents will call me. I'm thinking about sending my kid to Maryland. They ask about all the questions that we all get as educators, like class size and, ensemble and all this other stuff that's music related. But what I try to do is I try to get the parents to see that it's more to it than that. It's about being able to create good people in the world so that they can sort of pay it forward with regards to everything else, right? I mean, you look at what's happening now, what's happened, like I said, with some of the social injustice stuff that's been going on for like in the George Floyd situation, which just ended the way I think it should have with Derek Chauvin being convicted. Like that was sort of the catalyst for everybody to see like, hey, this has to happen, right? And then we're dealing now most recently with the Asian discrimination. Like it's never going to stop unless everybody, black, white, purple, brown, orange, yellow, realize that we have to do this together, right? And so I married an attorney, pivot a little bit. I married an attorney and non-musical person at all, right? And I remember, in our first couple of years of marriage, she asked me, she said, I really want to do something to make a difference. And like, have you ever really thought about doing something to make a difference? And I looked at her and I didn't take offense, but I said, I really think that my job is a difference maker in the fact that I perform for politicians, for heads of state, for all these people that make these decisions in the world, right? If they need 2.5 hours to come to the concert hall, to turn off their cell phones, to shut it down mentally, to rejuvenate and to replenish themselves, then I'm doing my job, right? That is me doing my part as best I can with the talent that I've been given and the position that I've, been given to make the best of it, right? And so I take pride in the fact that while I might be indirect, I am helping society on some level, right? And it's the same thing with students, right? I want to make sure that, yeah, if I recommend that, if I recommend that Carly, my student, can do this gig at the Washington National Cathedral, like, yeah, I need you to show up on time. I need you to be, a good person. I need you to have your part prepared. I need you to, all that stuff is great, right? But I also need you to make sure that you, in order for you to get called back, like you could be the best player out there, but if you're a jackwagon, they're not going to call you back. They're not going to want to see you again, right? And so it becomes more about like creating, cultivating good people first, right? Understanding, like, I'm not here to teach you, like, respect and like obey your elders, like none of that stuff. Like, again, you guys are grown, my students are grown, but it's more about understanding the concept of like paying it forward. Like, this music is bigger than just yourself. And it's just something, like, it's the way I was musically raised, musically with John. Like, he just was a good person first, and then he was a hell of a player second, right? And that hierarchy matters. Like, we all can think of, I'm sure, one or two or three or 10 colleagues that are in our industry that they're great players, but you probably don't want to work with them, right? And because we are all in positions of quasi influence where we can make decisions, right? Casey, you can choose if you want to bring this person in for a podcast or for a masterclass, right? They can be a great player, but like I said, if they're wagging, not going to happen, right? And I think that matters. And so my goal, my thought process is to make sure that first and foremost, you realize that being a good person is what really matters. And then you have a studio of good people, which creates a culture of good people. And that is how you create change. That is how you create grassroots change, by having the collective move things forward, right? And if the collective in my life can be my studio of 20 some kids, right? And we're moving things forward on campus, for example, or in this wing of the Clarice, or in this wing of the music center, or, like, it doesn't have to be this global change that I see in living in DC, right? And being able to, be next to presidents and heads of state. Like, we can create change on the ground level just as powerful. And I like that. I do. I have not accepted students that were great, just didn't fit the personality, didn't fit the personality of the studio. And some of them have gone on to have great careers in our industry. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them. So it's just a matter of fit. And that's the type of studio that I have wanted to create, because that's the type of studio that I saw at Butler.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it is so important. However, we had a technical question on Instagram. Jesse Guo said, how do I get even hands? So could you please spread some light on that?
Even hands, paid hands. That's right. I mean, it's like the elusive thing. Like, everybody wants to be Casey Cangelosi, right? We all want to be able to do and be him, right? And we can't, right? So, I mean, that's a loaded question. Like, how do you get even hands? I mean, the simple answer is practice, right? I mean, but that's not going to help, right? For me, what I've always done to sort of keep, and it's what I've done in COVID. Like, I'm not in Washington right now. I'm in California. We've spent most of COVID out in California with my best friend and his wife, so created a different pod. So I don't have timpani, right? I've had to rent some timpani to practice downtown LA for a couple of gigs, but like, I haven't had any timpani. So I've got a practice pad and some sticks, right? And so what I usually do to make my hands even, to be more technical about it, is I have always, and will continue to, and will probably always continue to focus on my left hand, my weak hand, right? And so for me, I'll do, for example, you pick any tempo, but I'll do 8 on one hand, and then 8 on my strong hand, and then 16 on my weak hand. And then double stops to make sure that they are doing the same thing, right? You get these weird flams, flams, and you're going to have some da-da-da-da-da. You want to make sure that it's flat flams. This is what I do. When you're playing timpani, when you were going for double stops, you want to do flat flams. You want to make sure that they're flat. You get that weird trampoline-y feeling, when you land on the trampoline, when it's down at the bottom, it feels weird, your knees buckle. That's what you want when you're doing these sort of double stops. You want to make sure that they're flat so that you make sure your hands are even. So I've been doing that for 20 years. That's been sort of my warm up, 8, 16, and then 16 double stops. That's helped out a lot. Obviously practicing in front of a mirror. These days, you've got video like out the wazoo. So use a video, practice video, make sure your hands are doing the same thing. Literally look at your hands, look at the video, and make sure that your hands are doing the same thing, that they're hitting in the same playing spot, or in the same playing spot relation to each drum or each bar, or whatever the case may be. So it's like doing those things from the beginning, and then sort of working your way up with speed and accuracy and, notes or whatever. So you can start on a drum, put a towel on the drum, or whatever the case may be. And like, that's been my main basic exercise to creating even hands. And then when I'm practicing something that's across the console, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drums, like, I just make sure that that is first and foremost. And the other thing with regards to creating a good sound, which is also even hands, paid hands, is make sure that my console is in the right place. That's one of the things that I see a lot of students don't tend to do. They'll just come into the lesson from the last person who was 6'3" and they're 5'8", and then they don't move the drums so that they're in the right place for them, right? And so it's not even that they're playing, that they sound bad, they're just hitting the drum in the wrong spot because the drum's too far away because of their arms, and it's all that, so little details like that. And those are the things that I kind of focus on from the beginning, from like lesson number one. And so it's some of those things that, you know, feels like that helps, but playing the drums in the right spot isn't going to get you even hands. It's just practice. That's all I can tell you, buddy. I'm sorry. It's hard. It's not easy. Like I said, everybody can't be Casey. There's only one. So you're going to do.
I like it.
Although I hear if you buy Casey's mallets, it helps.
You gotta buy his mallets. That helps. And like I said, you want to play in tune, just buy you gotta buy all 13 though. That's the thing. You can't buy one or two. You gotta buy all 13, and then everybody wins.
I like this. One more question from Facebook. Our buddy Will Marinelli. Hey, Will, thanks for your questions as always. We've talked a little about this already, but I don't think we've talked about how orchestras might be moving forward. And of course, you're in a lot more of these conversations than I am, certainly. But the question from Will is, the pandemic has changed so much of what we consider to be normal. How do you think orchestras, especially those on a smaller scale, can survive and thrive in the new normal?
I mean, PPP has helped, to be honest. Like, you know, like the government has come through in a way that for a lot of businesses, if you are like, you've got your ducks in a row and your management or your leadership is on top of things, like they've given you some tools to try to be able to survive, right? You're not going to thrive right now, but they've given you some assistance. And so like with regards to like literally organizations being able to survive, it obviously depends on the leadership of that particular organization. But orchestras in general, I do believe that they're going to come back, obviously, because arts, as we've all said, and I'm sure you guys have seen the memes and the posts and everything, like no one would have survived this pandemic without the arts, whether that's Netflix, whether that's books. Like this is all art related, all arts related. And so I think a lot of people that didn't see it that way are starting to realize that the arts are an integral, non-negotiable part of life. And, you know, yeah, classical music orchestras can be stuffy and can have this sort of stigma of, you know, being, you know, frou-frou or better than, you know, holier than thou. And again, once you get to know folks, like, you know, that's not the case. That's not the case for all. But I do think that like it's going to be some innovation is going to need to happen. You're going to have some innovative programs. One of the things that the Kennedy Center and the NSO has done that I think has been great is that they've definitely tried to move the needle to more innovative programming. DC, the nickname for DC is Chocolate City. There are a lot of Black people in the district, right? And so what they've, I think, smartly done is they've catered to that to try to get these people that don't necessarily go to the Kennedy Center for these concerts to come into the hall. I mean, we've done concerts with Nas, with Kendrick Lamar, with John Legend, like, and some of these concerts, man, like, I mean, you show up and like it reeks of weed, man. Like they brought the people in that they wanted to bring in, right? But that's the point. They come in here and then they see that, and then, you know, like I can't tell you dozens of times I'll come out because the stage door at the Kennedy Center is at the front. So the stage door, you come out into the lobby of like the public lobby. I've come out, I can't tell you dozens of times, and a couple, a Black couple or a non-white couple will come up to me and they'll say, were you the guy up there? And say, hey, this is great. This is the first time for us. This is fantastic. I'm like, hey, next time you come back, come to the desk, ask for me. I'll come out. I'll say hello. I'll give you a tour. Like I try to make it inviting for these people to come, because that is what I think it's going to take for all orchestras, not just the NSO, to continue to thrive. Is you're going to have to bring in new people and come to them. It's just like any other thing. It's just like teaching. We all teach. If you want to be, in my opinion, being a great teacher, you have to teach to the student. Your technique, you have to cater how you teach to that student. It's the same thing here. You have to sort of bring the people in. So I think it's going to take some innovation for most other orchestras and some perseverance and just some willingness to be flexible and do new things. Yes, we love playing Mahler. Yes, we love playing, you know, Stravinsky, but like, we're going to have to do some different things. And if you really don't want to play movie music, like, then, you know, like, tough shit, or tough cookies.
What if they
never work? Sorry, guys. Like, tough. That's what you're gonna have to do. So like, it just is what it is.
Maybe they should pass out weed.
Oh, it's becoming legal more and more. Whatever works, man. There's plenty of there's plenty of space for that. So especially in the district. So, but
it is funny hearing this. Like symphonies have the reputation of being stuffy or whatever. And like Carly and I had this gig in Miami one time. It was Miami has like a big EDM festival every year called Ultra Music Festival, and we played this like EDM concert in the Arts Center, and like it's not the music that I would listen to when I go home, but it was funny. Like it was fun playing timpani and watching someone in the front row just losing it over how cool it was. Like that doesn't happen during Beethoven.
Right, it just doesn't anymore because these people that listen to that, they don't get, and that's what it's all about. Like, wow, this is amazing. And then maybe they end up coming to something else that's not necessarily that it's EDM or that's not, it's not Nas. So I think that's the whole point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Ben, I remember that gig fondly. But you know what? Down here in Miami, we also do things like sometimes it's not the ideal music, but it's like the video game music from Pokemon, and people go nuts for it, and they're getting in the door. I did that one too with
Carly, yeah.
Done Legends of Zelda. The Harry Potter ones are super fun. The music.
I love those shows, right? Because it's great. They're hard and it's challenging. So it's actually more fun, more engaging to me than Beethoven in some ways because I have to focus. It's great. I love those shows.
You mentioned video games early on. You said I can be happy like timpani in video games. What are we talking about here? What do you?
Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah. Okay. What's your favorite?
Yes.
Oh man, I mean, since COVID, didn't 7 remake come out in COVID times? I can't remember. It feels like it did.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So I finished that. So that one was pretty good. But my favorite all time is probably 10.
10's good.
Yeah, Final Fantasy. That's my thing. Yeah.
Nice.
Like a couple other orchestra members at NSO that are into Final Fantasy. So anytime it comes out, there's this random text chain. We don't talk for like 2 years on text, and then we get a text about that. So it's good.
I think it has to be 7 for me, but it was also like the first. It's like it's hard to beat your first experience with that.
Sure. 7 was my first foray into Final Fantasy. I was in college, my freshman year in college. Like 7 was the first time I saw Final Fantasy 7 was also the first night I ever drank a 40. True story.
Cool. Ben, which one's your favorite? Come on.
I like the one with the mines where you click or right click.
Final Fantasy Minesweeper.
So when I was in high school, I took a poster of Yuna from Final Fantasy X to my hairdresser, and I was like, I want this, the long rat tail. I cut off my hair, and I had that long rat tail, and I really wanted her outfit, and everybody thought it was really stupid, but I loved it. So I totally nerd out with this too.
Wow, that's cool. Well, hey, I think that's a good way. Oh, actually, before we wrap it up, I need to just check with Jauvon. This is what I was going to use as the thumbnail. Is that cool? You guys okay with that?
I think that is absolutely appropriate. Yes.
Can that be the thumbnail?
Sticks and bricks, right?
Cool. Everyone knows now. Hey, that's how bells are made. Look at that. You got all the layers right there. So everyone, thanks. That was episode, gosh, I don't know, like 400 and something. There was a lot. We've done a lot of episodes. And anyway, Jauvon, man, thanks so much. It's always fun talking with you.
This is fantastic. You guys are great. Thank you for having me. And it's really good to start Zoom, we've been Zooming for the last, however many, months, but I'm excited because we're going to start to do this stuff in person, but this has been fantastic. This is great. So you guys have a great thing going here, and I appreciate you for asking me to be a part of it.
Yeah. Geez, you're very welcome. Oh gosh, Ksenija, Ben, Carly, take it easy. We'll see you next time. Bye everyone.